This is the Vitruvian Man. The Vitruvian Man is an illustration by Leonardo da Vinci that depicts the ideal symmetrical proportions of the human body. A lot of the times it's associated with the golden ratio, but that isn't exactly true. The idea behind the golden ratio is that if you divide this length of a body part by this length of a body part, then you will get the golden ratio number, which is about 1.618. And although that might be true coincidentally in some places here, this drawing is actually based on the architecture by the Roman architect Marcus Vitruvius from like the year 80. This is just one detail in the game Witchfire that I really enjoy. And we're going to spend the next 9-40 seconds going over details like this that I found that you might have missed. Or you might already know about them, and if you do, that's great. Now you know that you're not alone in that. But I'll just warn you. I did a lot of speculating, and that led me down a lot of, I think, educational rabbit holes. So, let's get started. Your base of operations in Witchfire is a forsaken church called the Shrouded Hermitorium. The Hermitorium is based on a real-life place in Veneto, Italy called Santuario Madonna della Corona, or Sanctuary of Our Lady of the Crown. I mean, I can't quote that that's true for sure, but I mean, like, come on. The legend behind this church is that a statue depicting the Pieta was discovered on the edge of a rocky ravine. The Pieta is a reoccurring image in Christian art when the Virgin Mary is holding Jesus' body after coming down from the cross. It means pity in Italian. The significance behind this Pieta is that it was originally on the island of Rhodes. But when the island of Rhodes was getting invaded by a bunch of Turks, some angels decided that the best plan of action was to carry the Pieta to Mount Baldo, where a group of locals eventually discovered the statue, but the only way to get to it was to descend down to it. It was then that they decided to build this church where that Pieta was found. There's not much overlap between that story and Witchfire other than the descending part, and I couldn't find any statues that look like a Pieta. But there are a bunch of these statues of angels pointing up, and I think this could be interpreted two ways. The first way is the literal way in the sense that you are going up to the Ascension Shrine, where you go to level up. The other is more symbolic because a lot of the time statues like this are used in cemeteries to symbolize guidance to heaven for a departed soul, or resurrection, or divine protection. And I think that jives with the prayer a lot since he's kind of like an undead sinner anointed by the Pope trying to reach absolution. So I think it makes sense. One of the first places you go to when you get to the Hermitorium is the testing grounds, with walls adorned with a whole mess of different kinds of symbols. This freaking wall. I stared at this wall for hours trying to make sense of what's going on here. And you can't. You just can't. We learned from Elias that the circles are crude imitations of the witch's spells, but to us they just look like a hodgepodge of different symbols from different cultures around the world. And they are. They look like magical circles with symbols from pagan and Wiccan worship mixed with alchemy and occult symbols all held together by Atlantic bind runes. But it's really tricky because there's a lot of overlap of what some of these symbols mean. Like this might be the alchemic symbol for air, or it could be earth if you're looking at it the other way. Is this the alchemic symbol for platinum, or a combination of Wiccan symbols? That might make sense because the Wiccans have magic circles. And then look at this one. This one could either mean brass, or just powder in general, which is lame. Unless they're talking about brass casings for bullets, or they're trying to give instructions to like pulverize something. This whole thing is just one big mess like it was drawn by some crazy hermit person. Trying to make sense of this was giving me a headache, and I was starting to feel like I was turning into Sam Neill from In the Mouth of Madness.
What's that?
So if there are instructions, I don't know what to, but it sure as hell ain't barbecue sauce. I'll leave my link to my sources of symbols that I was using to try to decipher all this in the description if you want to take a crack at it, and if you do, Godspeed. The only symbol on this wall that I fully understand its reasoning for being there is the Leviathan cross, or Satan's cross, because it's also the alchemical symbol for black sulfur or brimstone, which is associated with hell. Brimstone is used in Wiccan traditions for magical protection, breaking hexes, and other stuff like that. So at least all that makes sense. Plus is also the symbol found on the Kirkvane and the Book of Serpents. So now can we please move on from these walls? As you make your way further into the hermitorium, you will find a bench that you still can't sit on. I'm talking to you, Adrian Chmielarz, and I hope I said your name right. Probably didn't. It's Polish. Now once you head inside, you can make your way to the armory, where there's all kinds of weapons for you to select from once you've unlocked them, and there's a couple of recurring details we can only speculate on. The first is that a couple of guns have numbers on the side of them, some in Roman numerals, and some in regular numerals. Your first thought might be that this is the year that the gun is made, but I don't think this game takes place in 1872. There's just no way, because by then the whole witchcraft thing has more or less died down. We gotta be in like the 15 or 1600s, I think. So then you think maybe they're Bible verses, which would make more sense, except Bible verses are usually written with a colon to separate the chapter from the verse. Plus, we would need to know what book of the Bible is coming from. So if we tested this with hunger, for example, MDCCXIV is 1714 in Roman numerals. Let's just pretend there's a colon in the middle there. But then you would have like 5 different verses to choose from. So I just don't think that's it either. Other than that, the only other options I could think of is that they're either model designations or serial numbers. But I don't think witch hunters had to register their firearms, so if anyone has any better ideas, I'm all ears. But there's a couple more details that we can lightning round. Like Cricket has these colorful diamonds that could be a reference to the Swiss Guard, the Pope's military unit. And I like to think of witch hunters as like magical special forces units for the Swiss Guard. But then again, this guy in the intro isn't wearing traditional Swiss Guard garb. So maybe this game takes place between 1528 and 1548. Because there was no Swiss Guard at that time because they were disbanded after the sacking of Rome in 1527. So if that's true, then that would mean that this pope is either Pope Clement VII, who instructed papal inquisitors to hunt down witches, and the prayer is basically a mean-looking inquisitor on a mission from the pope to hunt down witches. Or this pope is Paul III, who established the Roman Inquisition, which was meant to combat things like heresy, sorcery, and witchcraft. I might be onto something here.
I thought you said this would be the lightning round.
Oh, right. So Hailstorm has a rose window on its stock, a kind of window that's on the facade of almost every cathedral and is meant to symbolize God's divine light. And Vulture has an Alpha and Omega symbol on the inside of his limbs. And anyone who has played Fallout 3 might be familiar with this Bible passage about Alpha and Omega.
I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. I will give unto him that is athirst of the fountain of the water of life freely.
Which doesn't really seem to fit in too well with the game unless you continue reading and you get to this part. The cowardly, the unbelieving, the vile, the murderers, the sexually immoral, those who practice magical arts, and idolaters, and all liars, they will be consigned to the fiery lakes of burning sulfur. This is the second death. Yeah, I think that fits better. And lastly, the armory is also where you go to equip other things, like melee weapons, spells, relics, rings, and fetishes. Now at first I thought that was interesting word choice as well, but as it turns out, fetish doesn't only mean something freaky. It could also mean an inanimate object worshipped for its magical powers. There you go. But then I read the description for Mandrake, and I was like, really? Maybe that is appropriate verbiage. Because I don't know how else that could happen, you know? So that's all I'm going to talk about for now. Like I said, I did a lot of speculating in this video. But I could have done more. Like speculate about what this symbol means. Chances are we'll figure it out when the full game is released and we have more of the story told. So until then, let me know of any details I might have missed that I should talk about. Or let me know if you think that I've lost the plot completely, because that probably happened too. Thank you and take care.